This gentleman has a BA in Security and Defense Studies from Korea Army Tech Military Academy at Johan Kennedy. In 2002, he backed a BA in English Interpretation and Translation Studies, Korea University Graduate School, Seoul, Korea. His career spans through Operation Director, Senior Intelligence Assessment Officer, the Rogue U.S. Combined Forces Command. Between 2011 and 2012, he elsewhere as Regimental Commander, Capital Defense Command, Chief Intelligence Planning Division, Rogue Army Headquarters. Between 2013 and 14, he became the Chief of Staff, Korea Defense Intelligence Command. Between 2020 to June 2020, elsewhere as Professor Anyang University, Seoul, Korea. Between 2020 to 2023, this gentleman held swear as Managing Director, Military Mutual Aid Association. And from 2023 to date, he is Director, Military Intelligence Research and Analysis Institute. He has received and has been honored with so many distinguished awards. But let me limit it to two: Presidential Citation Award and Order of National Security Merits. This gentleman is not single. He's not single. He's handsomely married to a very beautiful wife and has two sons and beautiful daughters, which I've seen in my spirit. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to invite to the lectern for a special lecture, distinguished Ambassador Jehon Johan. A round of applause. Please celebrate him till he comes to the lectern.
Bendito es kami, es combo. Actually, I learned this speech something in your language last night. My friend To the wonderful people of Akwa Ibom, I bring you warm greetings. My name is Johan Chung, the Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to Federal Republic of Nigeria. Her Excellency Senator and Chairman and my friend Nzima, the Vice Chancellor, distinguished members of the faculty, and honorable guests, and above all, the students of the University of Uyo Good morning. Thank you for your warm welcome and for inviting Korea into this house of learning. Let me open with two numbers and one question. I hope will stay with you. In 1953, after a war that destroyed almost everything, the average Korean earned about $67 a year. Last year, the figure was about $36,000. In a single lifetime, Korea moved from one of the poorest countries on earth to the world's 14th largest economy. How did it happen? And more importantly, what can Korea and Nigeria build together from it? Let me answer in three parts. What Korea learned, what we are already doing together, and the future you can choose. To understand now we made this transformation, we must first look back at where Korea started our history and the deep scars we carry. Korea suffered under harsh colonial rule of Imperial Japan for 36 years. Although the country was liberated after World War II, it was once again divided under the Cold War structure and the form of imperialism. The country divided under the Cold War framework plunged into a devastating war 5 years later. In 1950, a devastating war broke out on the Korean Peninsula. It lasted exactly 3 years. 1 million lives were lost, 2 million people wounded, and 10 million families were torn apart. I know this story sounds painfully familiar to you. Nigeria too endured colonization. And soon after your independence, it also faced the tragedy of a 3-year civil war, losing millions of your own brothers and sisters. Begin with the half-truss of 1957. Our cities were rubble. We had almost no natural resources. Fewer than 1 in 4 adults could live. During the 36 years of colonial rule, Japan slowly implemented a policy aimed at keeping the Korean people undereducated and ignorant. The aim was to utilize them as a workforce that would submit to colonial authority. We live on foreign aid. In fact, in those years, Korea was poorer than many countries in Africa. Some of the nations that wishes us well were doing better than we were. When the guns fell silent in 1953, the outside world handed down its verdict. The British Guardian wrote that there was nothing but ruins, and questioned how people could survive the winter. France Le Monde stated that Korea was not a country, but merely a giant refugee camp. Time magazine declared us the most perfectly destroyed country in human history. And the World Bank said that our economy independence was impossible, stating we would need aid for at least 30 years. That was the external gauge of pity, the gauge of impossible. But we refused to be defined by what others thought. With nothing in the ground, Korea placed it back on the only thing we have, our people, and our collective intelligence. We put education first. When resources were desperately scarce, Korea still chose to build schools. When the Korean government started building schools instead of buying food, the economists criticized us, saying, hungry people need bread, not food. But we trusted our own judgment. Between 1956 and 1960, Korea independently built 3,247 schools. Parents sold on their last auction to pay for peace. Korean universities, towers built on the bonds of auction. And the result? In just 6 years, our literacy rate plummeted from 78% to 22%. And today, it is under 1%. Today, roughly 7 in 10 young Koreans go on to university. Those educated young people became the engineers and workers who built everything they followed. The lesson was simple. Invest in people first. In 1961, when we aimed for $1 billion in export within 10 years, Financial Times mocked it as unrealistic illusion. We achieved it in 8 years. When the World Bank opposed our first steel mill in 1967, we built it anyway and made a profit in the first year. Then we opened to the world and climbed one step at a time. We started by selling wheels and plywood, then closing. Steel was produced at the steelworks and used to build ships. Subsequently, automobiles were manufactured, and in time, semiconductors. Even every 5 years, the nation set one clear goal and moved toward it together. Names you know: POSCO Steel, Hyundai Cars, Samsung Semiconductors, and the recent Galaxy mobile phone, LG and Samsung TVs and refrigeration, washing machines, Daewoo ENC, and others, all began in the poor country. When you look at Korea's global conglomerate today, it is hard to imagine how we began. Back in the 1950s, right after the war, these world-renowned companies started as tiny factories, small workshops. Through step-by-step innovation and absolute dedication, they overcame severe capital shortages and gradually scaled up their operations. What began as small local enterprise built the industrial backbone of Korea and eventually grew into global market leaders we see here today. Look at this picture and numbers. In 1977, Korea reached $10 billion in exports, a milestone we achieved through the tireless work of young men and women in garment factories like the one on the left. Last year, the number has surged past $700 billion. We no longer just export clothes. Korea now powers the digital world with memory chips and builds the ocean's giants in our shipyard. This is what step-by-step progress creates. People call it the miracle of the Han River, but it was never a miracle. It did not come without sacrifice. Money was scarce, so families sacrificed. In the 1960s, Korea sent miners and nurses to Germany, and their wages helped fund our first factories. It was work, schooling, and patience. The rest was too open to the world and add value step by step. And we worked not to leave the countryside behind. A village movement called 새마을 운동. It was built on three principles: diligence, self-help, and cooperation. The government did not simply hand out free aid. In 1970, every village received 335 bags of cement, but extra support the following year grant only to villages that proved their self-reliance and result. This movement also challenged rigid traditions. Women and young people were elected as village directors, driving local savings, discipline, and community transformation. In 2013, its archives 새마을 운동 were inscribed on the UNESCO Memory of the World Register, and its principles are still referenced by the UN as a practical model. New rice varieties brought Korea to self-sufficiency in its main grain by the late 1970s. Village by village, incomes rose until the countryside had nearly caught up with the cities. We learned the lesson that growth must include everyone. If you'd like to learn more about 새마을 운동, you can scan the QR code in the top right corners. You can find many examples by searching for 새마을 운동 on YouTube. In 1997, then came another crisis, ASEAN financial crisis, when the economists predicted a lost decade as our credit rating collapsed overnight and our foreign currency reserves dried up. 3.5 million ordinary citizens stepped forward. They voluntarily donate 227 tons of gold, from wedding rings to baby birthday rings and family jewelries, to pay off national debt. We overcame it in less than 4 years. It is the power of solidarity. So, what is the secret? Not luck, not treasure under the ground. It was people, strong institutions, and patience to plan for the long term. We valued running over quick money and through in decades, not in seasons. And we did not do it alone. The world invested in Korea. When we were poor, we have never forgotten them. I tell you this story for one reason. Everything Korea did, Nigeria can do. It is own way and in its own time. I have just walked you through Korea's story. Let's take a short rest. I recently came across a rap video about Korea's development, and I would like to share it with you. Then we'll move on.